Alright, I'll give you guys a minute because YouTube shut me down again. It's like hit and miss, guys. I have like a bug bite on my foot and it's ridiculous. Well, that one person back. Yeah. I'm kind of really excited about this. I'll tell you guys like what I was saying in a minute. I'm just waiting for people to jump back on so that way I don't have to tell the story multiple times. But I'm really excited for this ball gown project because it is part of a giant collab, which I have been saying for a while. But other people have started on their dresses and started posting things on Instagram, so I feel like I can now say what it is. But there's a group of us that are making 1890s inspired Frozen costumes. So they're either based on a costume that Anna or Elsa wears. We couldn't get any of the guys to join us and be Hans or Kristoff, which I'm kind of disappointed in, but that's okay. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. I think we have that scheduled to come out in August. So with my accent fabric getting here in a month, I will have about a month to finish everything, which will be really tight for me. But I feel like I can do it, especially if I use this like whatever, especially if I use this time to make a jacket pattern, which is something that I don't have. And then I should be able to just make everything quickly. The plan is to make a wearable mock-up of the jacket that I want to go with like the transition look. So if you guys don't remember, I'm making the ball gown version, which is essentially what you guys have seen, and then I'm making, which is actually what this pin tuck top is for, is the transition look. So I'm going to have a pin tuck top. If you can't tell, I'm doing Elsa's coronation outfit. So the colors for the transition one is I'm going to have like a bright fuchsia jacket, a white pin tuck top, because that's just very much like of the time to me, of the time period that we're doing. And then I'm thinking about having a black belt that will attach the same thread bars on here to stay in place, and then I'll like have the same skirt. I also plan on making a hat, and we'll see about like styling a wig and making a crown and gloves and all of that. I might do it, I might not. I haven't quite made up my mind on how like into this I want to go. Part of me is just like, yes, go all the way, and the other part of me is just like, I don't have the funds to do that right now, so let's just work out of our scrap box. So I guess we will see if I want. I still have a little bit of time to like order things if I want to, so I'm not terribly worried. I'm also not terribly keen on the idea of buying and styling a wig because I've bought a couple of wigs in the past and like the wig caps never quite fit my head. Either I have too much hair or I just have a big head and they just don't fit. Like either they don't cover all my head in the back or they like only go up to here. They're like half wig size on my head. It's weird. Anyway, I'm trying to figure that out while still doing things. It's not something that I feel like I want to put my energy into. I have a couple of other projects coming up that I'm kind of excited about. Ooh, yes, I can tell you those. Or should I tell you those when I get closer to finishing what I'm working on? Anyway, I think I'll tell you my December plans now because you guys know how far out I plan. In December, so last year was the first time my husband and I actually spent Christmas with his family. Because, you know, we're newlyweds. Not really any. I mean, you lose that status after you've been married for a year, right? I hope so. I don't like that status. Anyway, last year we spent Christmas with his family. and his family is German, and so they have like a very German Christmas. Like they have very German traditions and very German food. That comes from his very German grandmother, and his mom grew up in Germany, if I'm remembering things correctly. So that's what they do. And, like, yeah, it made me want to, like, reclaim some of my family heritage. And, like most Americans, I guess, I'm kind of like a European mutt. I have a lot of different countries and cultures and things. But I do feel a very strong connection to my Norwegian line, mostly because I know who immigrated from Norway and I know her immigration story, and like the way, like, she's no longer like in living memory since my great grandma died. There's no one that really remembers her in my family. Um, but like we have this family history and these stories, and so I've heard a lot about her. Name's Bertha Louise. So I've heard a lot about Bertha Louise. Um, and I just feel this really strong connection to the Norwegian line. So I've decided that I want to reclaim some of my heritage and experiment with, well, learn about Norwegian traditions and experiment with Norwegian food. And part of the Christmas tradition is to wear their traditional folkwear, which is, I think, a bonad is how you pronounce that. But bonads are also very regional. And so I need to figure out like where her family came from and what like that regional bonad would look like. If I can't find any of that out, well, here's the other thing. Like I've done some research into like to figure out if people like really stick with their regions or if they like just pick something they like. And people are just like some sources are just like, yes, it's very regional. And other sources are just like, no, we're kind of modern. You just pick what you like. And so I'm trying to find all of this information. And that's really hard. So if I cannot figure out where her family came from, because I'm pretty sure Bertha grew up in Oslo, if I'm remembering everything correctly. But if I can't figure out like where her family tree comes from, then I have a design in mind that I really like, that I'm going to make. So I'm kind of excited about that prospect. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to be using the embroidery machine that I have been storing for my friend for like about a year now, for the first time, and I'm going to just figure out how to make this super fancy, and I'll film this for you guys. I also plan on like filming all of the cooking adventures for you guys. So December is going to be like a mix of making a traditional folk costume as well as trying traditional Christmas things. We don't know if we're going to be traveling for Christmas yet. It really just depends on the state of everything and how comfortable we feel traveling. But like we don't have family that lives in our state or neighboring states. It would require a plane ride to go and visit family, so we've got to figure that out, but we have time to figure that out too. If we do end up traveling, I will probably do some, what's it called? Do some videos with my mom. That's what I was trying to say. Because we kind of like hatched this plan like back in February-ish, and both of us were really excited to start reclaiming some of our heritage. Anyway, that's going to be my next big project after I finish the Spanish gown. I have to finish the Spanish gown before I can start on the bonad. And I need to finish the Elsa project. So that's kind of my plan for the rest of the year. Those are the videos you can expect from me for the rest of the year. I have a couple of other fluff videos I'm probably going to be throwing in just because I can't help but sew other things. Especially, so I've gotten really strict with my workflow on like I work between this time, and I don't do like actual big projects on the weekends unless I'm feeling really motivated. Then I will. But it's leaving me time for like fluff projects so I can make things from my stash that I've wanted to, and I can work on this project that I wanted to do for a while. So it's actually kind of like really fun, and it's setting boundaries between like work and hobby. So that's really good and really healthy. Anyway, the other big thing that we have started talking about is Costume College got canceled this year because of the pandemic. And so all of CostTube has kind of decided that we want to do our own version of CostTube and put it online. So we've named it CocoVid, which is, if I remember correctly, it is Marika from Enchanted Rose Costume. Like, she is the one who had that brainchild, and we're just running with it. So, something that I've been thinking about doing for that is kind of what I've been thinking about doing for a while, is to just make a bunch of like super basic how to sew tutorials. I've talked about starting a Patreon with you guys before. And so something that I have thought about with that is on one of the tiers, just making it like a straight learn to sew with me thing. And so what I would do for CocoVid is kind of like everything you need to learn before like you sign up for the Learn to Me for Patreon. Is kind of what I'm thinking. So we would have like very simple gender neutral projects that would teach you like all of the techniques and things that you need to learn and before you like start hopping into like, let's actually start like learn how to read a pattern and make a blouse and things. So that's what I'm thinking about doing. You guys can let me know what you think about that. I'd love to hear your feedback on that idea. Let's see, what else? Apparently I have a lot more to talk to you guys about than I thought I did. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all. So, musings with Marty time. I kind of had, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what I ranted on in my Instagram stories, because like talking in Instagram stories and videoing stuff just like makes me anxious because it has a timer and it runs out anyway. I didn't feel like I like got everything out that I wanted to, and it's such an interesting topic, like oh my gosh. Anyway, so let's start talking about this. Let's start talking about classical literature and how it's been whitewashed and how it's a terrible thing that like, ugh, terrible thing. Anyway, my favorite classical novel is The Count of Monte Cristo, and I love The Count of Monte Cristo because it is, one, brilliantly written, and two, like, the way Edmond Dantes, like, enacts his revenge, is, like, fabulous. Like, he is so dedicated to everything, and, like, nothing goes awry in his plan, and like it's just ridiculous. But there's parts in the story that just have never quite made sense to me. Like I get the whole thing on how like Edmund was from a lower class than Ferdinand, and that's why Ferdinand was jealous that like Edmund got Mercedes and he didn't. But there's other things. It's just like Napoleon really took a gamble when he wanted Edmund to deliver a letter for him that like Edmund couldn't read, and like why did they question like where the Count of Monte Cristo got his money from? Like there's just so many questions that were just like, yeah, this doesn't quite all make sense in my head, but it's a fantastic story. Anyway, um, last week, yeah, it would have been last week. I saw like a giant post on Facebook that basically went through like, oh hey, did you know that Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Count of Monte Cristo as well as the Three Musketeers series, was black? And all of a sudden it just went, Edmond Dantes must have been black. Because there's no other thing that makes sense. So I understand like very little about systemic racism and um, like how it affects every facet of someone's life, whether it is like a very conscious thing or a very unconscious thing. Um, but like it just blew my mind because it suddenly made sense. Like if Edmund was black, then how dare Mercedes choose him over the white, wealthy future Count Mondego, right? Um, it also makes sense on like the whole story of Albert, right? Mercedes' son, who is also Edmund's son, but Mercedes passed him off as Ferdinand's son. Like that never quite made sense to me. I'm like, wouldn't Albert at least semi resemble his father? But if Edmund was black and Mercedes had a white passing baby, then like they never would have questioned that, right? They just would have said, "Oh, he probably looks like some ancestor more than his parents." So it's just there's just so many like little details in everything that just like kind of all fell into place. And the biggest one for me was there's a part in the story when Edmund goes out as one of his personas, and when he's trying to get back into his chambers or someone's trying to like ambush him as he comes back into his chambers. Like I don't quite remember the exact details. But like they don't see Edmund as the count or the priest or whatever other personas he had. Well, they don't see him as whatever persona he's coming into the room as. They see him as the priest. Because that's who they expected to see based on the color of his skin. And it's just really interesting to me to kind of compare this to modern day, where we think of like, well, if we don't see color, then we won't have these racial problems. And eventually it might get to the point where like the color of your skin doesn't matter, but right now it does. And in the story, like in the time period that the story is set, it does. Like people treat people differently based on the color of their skin, whether it's conscious or not. And so when we say like I don't see color, what we're really saying is like I don't see the experiences that you bring to the table that are different than mine. Because that's really what the color of your skin dictates. And so it was so like so mind opening for me to understand this novel that I love in this new context, and to understand that like yeah, this is a problem, and this still today, and this is something that I can still be conscious of. And it was just kind of exciting and a learning moment for me, and that's why I wanted to share it with all of you guys. So that's my musings and like what I've been thinking about this week. So yeah, I don't know how long the other one was going before we got shut down, but I guess I could check what time it is. Okay, so we've been going for about 40 minutes. That's not a terrible thing. But I am out of things to talk to you guys about. So, yeah. I hope you all have a great day, and you need to take care of yourselves. So, take your pills, drink your water, have a fantastic day. I will see you guys all on Monday with my new video. So, bye guys.